So, Nate, there's a big summit going on. You may or may not have seen this. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization. It's one of those blocks, a bit like BRICS or a bit like the G8 or something, or a bit like NATO. It's just a collection of different countries in the Far East sort of getting together and talking things out from time to time. And that's what's going on at the moment. And one of the interesting things I think it's worth talking about, because I love me a little bit of geopolitics. You know, being a history nerd, it does sort of dovetail well with just being interested in sort of the broadest stories, the biggest, broadest sort of strategies in the world. Fascinated by the sort of the high level overview stuff. So this is going on at the moment. It first started back in I think the year 2000 or so. So it's not sort of that old as a thing. But it's going on at the moment, and one of the headlines, which is interesting, I thought was quite interesting, is this idea of some sort of reset or reboot or some sort of reimagining of the relationship between India and China. Now, I think it is interesting because these are two of the world's most powerful countries. You know, we like to think in the West that it's sort of like, you know, the United States won the Cold War and they're the only real superpower in the world. And that may even have been a true thing to say in 1994 or something, right? But we're not really living in that world anymore in terms of that. It's sort of a multipolar world in terms of true sort of power, centers of power. And India and China are two of the biggest players. I mean, I think you can say now it's either the first or the second biggest economy, and India's like the fifth. And in terms of population, they're like 1 and 2, aren't they? In any number of ways you want to measure it, in any number of metrics, they're absolutely at the top of the tree. If you know, so okay. So their relationship, though, between them is very, very interesting. Most people, I think, in the West don't know much about it, but it's actually quite a fraught relationship. It's actually not smooth at all. They share a massive long border, a giant border in the Himalaya region. So like up in Tibet, up where there's Nepal and Bhutan, not giant populations, and the border is not clear. Both sides have got different ideas over what that border is, where the actual line is, because again, over the decades or over the centuries even, there's been slightly different borders. So now we're in a position where you can argue about it. You know, we want the border that the British had in the 1940s or something. No, there was an agreement long before that or long after that should be the real border. So that sort of shit goes on all the time between them. And in fact, even in like 2013 or 2015, their armies had clashes. They usually just call them clashes. Like China will try to build a little village inside Indian territory, or territory that India says it's theirs, and India have to blow it up or something. Or like in 2020, there were clashes on the Chinese-Indian border where like 30 or 40 soldiers were killed.
Yeah,
so it's not nothing. It's not nothing. It's not just like a random sniper shot which missed, and that's like no. People get killed. People die in it. So I think it's interesting to see. I don't know if you've got that other link. Can you quickly show the other link? Oh no, sorry, it's not the one I thought. Anyway, there's another picture of them where Modi and Xi are sort of shaking hands, or just about to shake hands, or they're standing next to each other. And there's another one I saw, because they've both got a face like a slapped ass. They're both standing there like they're not happy to be standing next to each other. Like they're really only shaking hands because they've sort of got to, right? They don't like each other. They're rivals. China and India are fairly profound rivals. They both want to be the dominant player in Asia. China absolutely thinks it's something like their destiny to be the sole power in Asia. As I say, like a unipolar power base, and it's Beijing, right? It's Beijing. And now India are big enough and powerful enough that they don't have to accept that, right? They don't have to swallow that. India's not going to invade them 1940 style, the way the Germans invaded France in 1940, right? That's not going to happen, right? China's not just going to like nuke Delhi one day. So India's not going anywhere, right? As an entity or as a people. So they feel like, and they're right, they don't have to accept China's hegemony over all of Asia. But that's what China want. Like China, like in classic China, just building more and more roads and more villages inside Indian territory, which they claim, inside like Tibetan territory, or inside places in west India, or on the border between Bhutan and Nepal. There's a bit where India and China have a border, and just China taking the piss, just building villages there, so that somewhere down the line they can basically do the possession is 9/10 of the law thing. Like this is ours now. Like this is ours, really. Like what are you going to do about it? That playing that thing, like China, real piss takers always, and India like sort of not standing for it, or often sort of pushing back. I mean, in 2020, after that 2020 incident, India banned flights to China. They banned TikTok, like completely in all of India, as well as a number of other Chinese apps and websites. They just banned. So it's quite a fraught relationship, and but a really important one in terms of the whole world. Really important.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you've got any thoughts on feelings on that, but I just do find this sort of thing fascinating.
Well, I mean, my thoughts and feelings on India and China, awful, bloody awful. It's difficult. Obviously, you have to acknowledge the fact that they are quote unquote superpowers, like world powers, like just on sheer massive writhing people, in their respective countries. They are, right, and economically correlates to economically speaking, they're huge. It's such a poor geopolitical maneuver from the West to push Russia into their hands as well. I know we're talking about China and India specifically, but you can't really talk about them without Russia, because Russia kind of got involved, and that was such a bad move. It was such a bad move to kind of push Russia away into the hands of India and China. At the end of the day, China, I've got nothing against Chinese people, just as an FYI. I'm sure Chinese people are quite lovely. I'm sure if I met them, I'm sure they'd be absolutely just nice as pie, the majority. But my God, like, geez, Communist Party and what they strive for and how they go around it. Even though they're superpowers, I mean, it's that question of, is it morally just to placate these people because they're superpowers? Should we do deals with them? Should we not? I think it's obviously this isn't a deal that we're doing with them, and India are basically the same as well with what they do. Obviously, they're not communist, but there's lots of dodgy things going on in India, and so sitting back and just watching two awful countries with respect to their sort of, I don't even want to say it, like human rights, I guess. I don't know. I don't like invoking human rights, but you know what I mean. Moral structure. There you go. Moral fortitudes. It's an interesting one. I care not as a whole, and I hope this implodes on them effectively. is how it is. That was a long way to say, I care not, because I just want them to implode.
No, you're absolutely right. I completely agree that the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, is one of the most malevolent and evil things, cabals on this planet. I absolutely despise them. I'd love to see them implode one day. Would love it. I would love it if we beat them. That would be great. And as we say, I'm sure the average Chinese person is lovely. Well, they've got a reputation for being really rude and arrogant.
Oh, this is true.
Honestly, though, I'm not just making it up. I'm sure there are extremely polite and extremely nice and urbane Chinese people, but on a whole, they're thought of as really rude and arrogant. When you go to Asia, somewhere in Southeast Asia or wherever, go visit Vietnam or something, or Japan or Thailand or something or other, they're like, oh yeah, we don't like Chinese people. Yeah, we don't like them. Yeah, they're really rude. And they like spit on the floor and stuff. And I don't know.
It's
anyway,
funny.
yeah,
It's
anyway.
funny you say that, because that's when I went to visit Thailand, that's what they said about the Indians. They're like, yeah, no, we hate them. They're rude, they're disgusting, and they smell, was basically the general consensus.
Where's the lie?
Oh, and they're perverts. So
oh yeah,
you know,
obviously,
that was the other thing.
I mean,
obviously,
that's given as read. Yeah,
of course. Come on.
But yeah, it's interesting you mention Russia and Putin, because a lot of this thing, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, a lot of it is a bit like a BRICS thing, where it's like an economic summit as well as just a political one. And so they're talking about Mr. Trump's tariffs and how, Trump's pissed off with India for continuing to buy Russian oil, for example, just one example. Or Mr. Trump's tariffs on India, which I think are like 50%, which I think now have kicked in.
Nice.
So yeah, right, nice, yeah. Buy American, if you're in America, that is. Buy American.
This is.
Sorry, go on.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to say is that I mean, at the end of the day, it's two big economies built on effective slave labor, selling products to the West. I mean, in theory, you could destroy their economies by just not buying anything from them, right? Like, there's not.
Yeah.
China, obviously they do a lot more now, but they were a nothing not that long ago, and they built their economic power on effectively slave labor and just cheap shit, and everyone bought it in the West.
Exports.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, if the rest of the world just didn't buy Indian and Chinese exports, it would screw their economies really badly. Obviously, the Chinese have got a massive internal economy, of course, but they rely on exports, massively. So this idea that in the broadest sense, the idea that Russia as well, but China and India and let's say Russia, they can get together and they don't need Europe, they don't need the United States markets and stuff, because they're big enough and bad enough on their own. Well, come on. Really, that's not really how like the world economy works anymore, right? They can try that, and they are trying it, but it really won't get anywhere. And the idea that China and India can be best mates, if that Modi and Xi stand on a single platform and shake hands in front of a camera, it will mean that their profound rivalry has gone away. No, not at all. And I love it, because, like you said, I don't particularly care for China or India in any real way, right? I'm not Chinese or Indian, so what do I care about their interests at the end of the day? There's that thing when China went communist in the late 40s, when Mao got in finally, and like suddenly a third of the world or a quarter of the world has suddenly gone red, and if they create a strong partnership with Soviet Russia, that's a giant block that's so powerful that the United States or Europe could never hope to stand against it. Well, the reality is that Soviet Russia and Maoist China kind of hated each other, and they tried to work together but couldn't really. Again, China was too backward and Mao was too much of a douchebag for it to ever work. It just couldn't work. Russia kept trying to bend over backwards to make it work, and it couldn't. So the fact that they were both communist wasn't enough. Yeah, it's the same with this.
Brilliant.
The fact that India and China's economic interests are lining up, it's not enough. Anyway, I thought it was interesting, worth saying a few words about.